Hey everyone, welcome back to another Wuthering Waves video, and for today I wanted to make a guide on the best free-to-play teams in the game right now. As you know, we're moving into the latter half of version 2, and the game is starting to ramp up in team building, with a ton of different playstyles and stuff to go for. A question I've been getting as of late is what teams are worth going for if you're a free-to-play player, someone who doesn't have that much wherewithal to pull for every single character in the game. Seeing as we haven't had a 4-star unit in quite some time, I understand the community's concern for the game's affordability, and with that in mind, I think it's a good opportunity to get into a video on 5 teams that perform very well in the metagame right now without having to break your bank. Keep in mind that inevitably I will be including lineups with a 5-star character or 2, but that's under the assumption that you're actively playing the game and have a reasonable supply of free pulse and astrites, so I suppose it's less of a free-to-play team and more of a budget one. I'll also be assuming that everyone here has Shorekeeper and a copy of String Master, seeing as all beginner players can choose one version 1 unit to pull for and one limited weapon. One final thing, ultimately Wuwa is a game of playstyle preference, with its combat placing a greater focus on mechanics and execution in that you have to go through long elaborate rotations while simultaneously trying to avoid getting hit by enemy combos. Whichever units you can operate best are the best party for you. For example, I like Carlotta cause she's easy to play, even if Zani or Carlotta can do more than her overall. I just like the brainless gameplay of Carlotta cause I suck at the game. But if you're a legend at playing Dungeon, then keep doing so. This video will be more of a general point of reference for anyone looking to get some teams built up. As such, I'll be combining all endgame aspects together, TOA, Whimpering, and Hologram. So without further ado, let's begin. First team is gonna actually feature our newest unit, Augusta. Augusta is a great general attacker with a consistent playstyle that can account for most if not any situation you come across. First order of business is that she's strong whether you're fighting bosses or waves of enemies, partly thanks to her damage being spread very nicely across a rotation and your ability to attack for long stretches of time. Though she does have an optimal attack order, the fact that her prowess and ascendancy fortes have no cooldown means you can keep attacking non-stop. Good for Wuthering Waves when you take into consideration a wide attack range. Augusta can also shield the party and herself while fighting, which when used in tandem with her ultimate time stop gives you a modicum of safety when taking on hologram bosses in that you not only get to attack for free, but also keep yourself alive a bit longer in the event you take a couple hard hits. As well, while this is neither a good nor a bad thing, Augusta's inability to quickswap due to the way her outro skill works makes her forcibly beginner friendly, as quickswapping is more of an advanced thing. That's not to say she doesn't have vertical investment potential, she most certainly does, but evidently she is designed to be more accessible. Being a heavy attacker hypercarry works to her advantage, as you automatically have access to a strong secondary unit in Mordevi, whose outro skill juices up heavy attacks and he can offer some DPS of his own, plus a 20% attack bonus to the party at S6. Even without S6, Mordevi is by far Augusta's best secondary unit, at least until a Yuno comes out. Rounding out the list will give you Verina or Shorekeeper, resulting in Augusta, Mordevi, and either Verina or Shorekeeper. Given 2 of the 3 characters are free, that means you only have to pull 1 unit to get a functioning top-tier team. In fact, it may be the actual most free-to-play team in relation to performance, considering most other tier 0 attackers requires at least 1 other 5-star you have to pull for. Weapon selection is also quite nice. If you already have GN's signature weapon Verdant Summit, it's every bit as good as Augusta's signature Thunderflare Dominion, maybe only like 5% worse at most. If you don't have that, you can always default to Lustrous Razor. Really, all you need for Augusta is a beat stick. There's no special condition or anything you have to meet. On that note, the only thing sequencers get Augusta is more stats anywhere. There's no quality of life thing or consistency problem with her. Everything works at base. A great team to have in your back pocket, so if you haven't pulled Augusta yet, you definitely should. Next team might be a head scratcher for some on account of most people associating her with Zani, but trust me when I say, this party is still incredibly solid, Phoebe Hypercarry. Prior to Augusta, Phoebe was considered the most free-to-play friendly character in Wuwa. Honestly, she still might be. Much of what makes Augusta free-to-play friendly applies to Phoebe, albeit not quite to the same extent if we go by power. Currently, the best application for Phoebe is, like I said, playing secondary for Zani in Confession mode, stacking a crap ton of Frazzle for the overworked office girl so that said office girl can complain about her 9 to 5 on every enemy that's in her way. But I'll remind you that Phoebe still has a DPS mode, Absolution, and even with all the new DPS characters, she is still an amazing contender, especially for the price. Phoebe is a simple playstyle of casting her skill, then activating Absolution and auto-attacking from there. She doesn't have the best AoE coverage, but thanks to her basic attacks grouping enemies as she strikes from outside the ring, and being able to spread her attacks across the long rotation, Phoebe's a splendid tower unit, while not being too bad in hologram by virtue of her skill freezing enemies. The main thing allowing her to be one of the best free-to-play teams though is how easily you can get her off the ground. The only condition Phoebe requires is another unit who can apply Spectral Frazzle. Conveniently, everyone just so happens to have one, SPECTRO, so you can potentially go Phoebe, SPECTRO, and Verena or Shorekeeper, or if you're confident that Rover can sustain you enough, you can have them be your quote-unquote healer and run either Sanhua or Mortefi, who can go Moonlit Clouds and do general buffing. Phoebe does a mixture of basic and heavy attack damage, mostly heavy, but Sanhua and Mortefi are roughly the same. From a weapons point of view, Phoebe has the benefit of making good use out of String Master. Again, we're assuming everyone has one copy of it by selecting it for your guaranteed weapon. Alternatively, you can use Augment and or Ocean's Gift. Augment's a bit better, having a crit rate substat, but overall Phoebe has a ton of options. Altogether, the main cost of this team would be Phoebe herself, and I'd argue she's one of the best units in terms of bang for buck since you can use her as a main attacker or secondary for Zani if you want to go down that route. For Phoebe herself, if you have Chikona, you can run a stronger Absolution team consisting of Phoebe, Chikona, and SPECTRO. There is a lot you can do with her, making this another great option for those on a budget. Next team will be Camellya. Camellya is the oldest character on the list if we go by release date, but she's still one of the most competitive Whimpering Waste units out there, if not the most comfortable. Not to say Augusta and Phoebe can't make it work there, rather Camellya is just so brain dead easy in Whimpering you can just pop skill and then hold the left mouse key until everything dies. You can't get any simpler than that. AoE is the name of the game for the Psycho Flower Girl, making her fairly handy in TOA where you can occasionally run into clusters of enemies. In terms of fighting a single enemy though, she's not the best. Generally, the rule for Camellya is to allow her to go through a long rotation, which could be difficult if there's any enemy that staggers you, but considering she has so many attack frames, you'll find yourself parrying stuff accidentally. There are a few premium team members you'll be encouraged to run with her for maximum efficiency, like Rocha, Cantarella, and whatnot, but being a basic attacker, Sanhua becomes an excellent choice as a secondary. She augments basic attack damage and is the perfect choice for Moonlit Clouds. Additionally, in light of Camellya having a long rotation, you'll need someone who doesn't take up too much field time if you want your sustained unit's outro and buffs to last a full duration, giving even more of a reason to go Sanhua for your secondary. If you're busy using Sanhua for a different team, Dantian offers a big boost in Havoc damage and she can go Midnight Veil for even more Havoc boosting, so you get to have your pick of the litter. For your sustained Shorekeeper is the best option hands down for Camellya, but you can't go wrong with Verena either. She offers everything you need. Fast rotation too, so you can cycle through Verena then Sanhua and immediately get to work on Camellya. But yeah, overall the main reason I recommend her is cause you want to have one dedicated Whimpering unit. She just so happens to be one of the best in that respect. Plus, having the option to go dungeon secondary is a bonus. Since being a budget player, I'd imagine you want to divvy up Sanhua for possibly someone else. Avoiding party overlap is an underrated benefit of a character in my opinion. This next one won't be as free-to-play friendly, but I still think it warrants mention for the sake of thoroughness. You'll definitely want to have a Carlotta team on deck, especially if you plan to take on the endgame. The keystone reason is that she's hands down the easiest boss killer in the game. Being a gun wielder, you can shoot from a far distance, which makes it easy to handle any boss or enemy that likes to run around. She can also close the gap from virtually any distance too. The casting range on a skill 2 is incredible. Attack radius aside, Carlotta's high base damage and simplistic rotation is just too good to pass up for Tactical Hologram and TOA Center Tower. Her ultimate containing built-in dashes lets you avoid enemy attacks while blasting back in return, not to mention a skill 1 having a 2-second stun for extra security. Funnily enough, even though she's meant to be a tower-focused unit, Carlotta's AoE isn't the worst out there. Each of her attacks, and especially her Forte explosion, has a decent AoE, so if you're able to crowd enemies together, you could have her playing Whimpering if you're in a pinch. Overall though, her low learning curve and consistency are what make her stand out. You have a ton of damage packed into a short and sweet rotation that hits like a truck. One major caveat to Carlotta though is that gun options are extremely few and far between. Pragmatically, your only workable option is Static Mist, a great gun for her no mistake, but a far cry from her signature weapon. Beyond those two, 4-star gun options are noticeably worse than that of other weapon types, so if you don't have any 5-star option for Carlotta, she might not be as powerful. More importantly, however, teammates. If we go for a full free-to-play / budget team, that would have you go with Tulchi or Yang as your secondary and Verena, Shorekeeper, or a 6 Baija for your healer. Yang doesn't have much of an outro skill DPS-wise, but Carlotta can be somewhat energy-hungry, which Yang has no trouble taking care of. Tulchi is a bit more straightforward. She does take quite a bit more field time to run through her rotation, but she's to Carlotta what Sanhua and Mortefi are to Camellya and Augusta respectively, an attack-type damage booster, in this case being Resonant Skill, so there are free-to-play secondary choices you can work with. Sustain-wise too, either Spectro Healer works, but if you have S6 Baija, that frees them up for different teams. However, to run Baija without having to lose that much efficiency, you really want to consider having Tilja as your secondary, since buffing only one Glacial unit won't get you that far compared to buffing 2. For that matter, Carlotta very much wants to have Tilja on her team. She's not as dependent on her for optimal efficiency, but Zozo combines the skill damage boost of Talchi with the battery capability of Yang Yang and the ability to pump her own damage into the mix, a considerable amount at that. In other words, Talchi and Yang Yang are good options, but Zozo is just so much better that you definitely want to go after her if possible. That said, having to get 2 5-star units kinda defeats the purpose of being a guide on budget teams, so for the sake of the video, Carlotta, Talchi, and Shorekeeper or Verena. As a reassurance though, Carlotta, Talchi or Yang Yang, and Shurina or Baita are more than sufficient for busting through holograms. Zozo is more of a good, better, best scenario. Final party will feature Phrolova. This one might be a strange option considering how unorthodox her playstyle is, but I'm happy to inform you that it's actually a very strong team. Reminiscent of Carlotta, you're allowed to allocate a bit more capital to fully take advantage of this team, but for a different reason than Carlotta, and even then there's still workaround to it. Phrolova might have an unconventional method of attack, but what enables her to be extremely powerful is the fact that she's a main DPS unit who can attack while off-field, giving you an insane amount of options in a player. She can dish out great DPS whether you're on-field or off-field essentially. In light of that, Phrolova's constant presence in combat makes her the absolute best character at clearing Wuthering Wastes, because you can have 2 active damage dealers out on the field at the same time, and Takati's area coverage ain't half bad. As an on-field attacker though, her rotations might appear convoluted, but once you get the hang of them, you can easily pump out some good damage. Ultimately though, her ability to attack while off-field is the main reason to consider her. Given that Phrolova also requires no energy to use her ultimate and she gives a ton of crit and attack to herself, she's actually one of the easier units to gear up as far as echoes are concerned. That being said, she very much is a package deal character in that if you're pulling for Phrolova, you'll also want to pull for her signature weapon. Being a rectifier user, her weapon options aren't as constrained as the likes of Brand or Carlotta. However, the disparity between her signature weapon and the next best option is almost like a 20% difference. That is substantial. Now, in her defense, weapons are guaranteed, so if it was a choice between S0R1 and 2 S0s, the former statistically is cheaper to get. However, if you can only get Phrolova without a signature weapon, then Stringmaster isn't the worst option out there. That's what's so beneficial about being a rectifier user. Stringmaster is a fantastic secondary weapon choice for just about anyone. Team-wise, like with any Havoc unit, you can always have Dungeon as a secondary, and on that note, you can also go Havoc Rover. A healer isn't really needed for this team considering you'll be swapping to Dungeon who can heal herself. Provided, she doesn't accidentally kill herself before that happens, but if you want that element of safety, you can of course substitute Rover for Shorekeeper or Verena. Interestingly, you can also run a number of dual DPS team comps like Phrolova GN or Phrolova Phoebe. Both benefit from her outro skill as heavy attackers. Seeing as those two are also very free-to-play friendly units in and of themselves, you can mix and mesh them together for good results. For Phoebe in particular, this can actually be one of her best teams if you carry Phrolova's signature weapon. As a reminder though, go for Spectro Rover, not Havoc Rover for this team. All in all, a slightly more costly character, but one with a surprising amount of versatility. Okay, so that concludes my guide on the 5 best free-to-play / budget teams. If I could include an honorable mention, it would be GN for almost exactly the same reasons as Augusta, only he's more Wuthering Waste oriented while Augusta's more tower. As a rule of thumb, have at least 2 strong tower teams, 2 strong Wuthering teams, and 1 boss killing team. Hence why I chose the ones that I did, Carlotta for Hologram, Augusta and Phoebe for Tower, and Phrolova and Camellya for Wuthering. Not to say they're mutually exclusive, all 5 teams can be used in either Tower or Wuthering. Some of them can also be good for Hologram, but if you plan to take on the endgame, it's good to have units who specialize in every base. Anyways, let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, but otherwise I hope this was insightful to those who needed it and entertaining to those who wanted it. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @FarsRM, join my Discord server, and why not check out my weapons tier list video if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.